Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of the WuMao Show. Today, I have the great pleasure and honor of being joined by Mr. Mario Cavolo. Mario, how are you today? Good, good,
Fernando,
good.
insane world.
Okay, I'm also very pleased to see Jerry Gray again in the show. Jerry, how are you this morning?
Very good, thank you. Good to
All
be
right.
here.
I have a question to ask Mario. What are you wearing?
Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Friends, countrymen, Democrats, Republicans, and communists, socialists, all of you, welcome from the amazing international Kangxi Resort, Hot Springs Resort and Spa here in Banxi in Liaoning Province. You bet your ass I'm wearing my Hot Springs Resort robe, baby. That's what I'm wearing. Here I am.
Okay, no comments on what I'm wearing or what Jerry is wearing. Guys, I want to ask a technical question to the audience, those 20 people that are watching us so far. Is the sound good? Could you, Noel? I see that you're in the chat. Could you let us know how this is sounding? And I guess that I'll start with the topics, but okay. So Noel, I know I have a new studio. Yeah. Sounds perfect, Dino Yan. Okay, thank you, guys. So now that we have the sound check, everything good, let us stay on topic. Okay, we're gonna start with the topics of this week. Yeah, the first thing that we wanted to talk about was the New York Times attack on those Uyghur testimonial videos. Did you guys see the post, Jerry?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
I tend to skim through those posts because they pretty much all say the same thing, mostly with the same sources, and none of them have any credibility for me at all. So yeah, I skim through them, but I don't focus on them, take notes anymore. I used to take notes and try and refute them, and I've stopped doing that now. They refute themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's an easy answer. Mario, what is your take on those reports?
Yeah, ditto, 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 right? Good heavens. I mean, the situation is to the point now where we have Colin Powell standing at the podium, showing us a jar of talcum powder and telling us that there are WMDs in Iraq. We have now killed 500,000 innocent civilian Syrians. And we are now pointing our fingers at China, who is genociding Uyghurs, who then get on the TV and say, what are you talking? Hi, I'm a Uyghur and I'm in China. I don't speak English very well, so there's some people here helping me make this video. That's reasonable. And I want you to know there isn't any genocide here. What the hell are you people talking about? And then the New York Times turns around and says, the Uyghur guy, saying, excuse me, there's no genocide. It's great, everything's okay. What are you talking about? And then the New York Times actually disrespects and disparages those people. I would like you to imagine for a moment if this was, we transferred to Phoenix, Arizona. I used to live there. My family's still there. Hi, Mom. Hi, my beautiful daughter, my BB, my family's there. Love you guys. Arizona, Phoenix, we lived on the border of the Indian reservation. And the story was that, in fact, the Arizona government, the Pima Indian Reservation, and the local government really making an effort to help those Pima Indians. They were in terrible shape, very high alcoholism, built casinos on the reservation. The Indians got rich. And then the federal government said, no, the Arizona government is treating those Indians horribly. They're not helping them at all. In fact, they're genociding those Indians. And then those Indians came on the TV and said, excuse me, the Arizona government, local here, helped us build a casino. Our lives are getting better. We thank the Arizona government for supporting us with their preferential policies. And the New York Times comes out and insults the Indians for making that testimonial video, saying that they're being treated well. That's what we have here, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's have a look at what the New York Times posted. Okay, I'm going to try and do something here. So let me see if I can go here, and then I make myself bigger, and then I'll put this video on. This is what they were talking about, yeah? the similarity of a lot of the videos that people were making, right? And the fact that they were using similar expressions. Yeah. So
So
there's a
what?
retiree, there's a factory worker, there's a taxi driver, and they're all saying there's no genocide here. We're free here. And the point that I want to make when I showed this video and when I made this argument is what took place. Let me go back here and here. The point that I want to make is that what took place just last week when I came back from my trip, we ended up in a COVID situation. I don't know, Jerry, you also had a scare over there, right? With Shenzhen and Guangzhou. How was it dealt down there? And then I'll tell you my experience here, Jerry.
Well, in terms of Zhongshan, the city where I live, we didn't have any locally transmitted infections. We did get 2 people come in through the quarantine system by air. So if you fly into China, into Guangzhou, for example, and you're going to travel to Zhongshan, they actually isolate you inside of the airport in a Zhongshan corral, if you want to call it that. Then they take you. And I've been through this. I know this works. I actually flew in from Thailand a year and a half ago into the quarantine system, and with a friend who I met at the customs border control. He'd flown in from the UK, and we were both coming to Zhongshan. First of all, we got corralled because we came from different places. Then we got put together because we were both going to Zhongshan, and that worked really well. So these people are inside of a quarantine zone and have been corralled into a Zhongshan quarantine zone, taken to Zhongshan, and they then found that they tested positive after the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th test. Now, those people were not part of the problem that happened in Guangzhou and Shenzhen just recently. But because Foshan got a few infections, Foshan borders Zhongshan, they actually tested 5.89 million. So let's say 6 million people got tested in 3 days. We all had to go. I just went across the road to my local park where they'd set up tents and camps. And I actually showed pictures of this on Twitter. And it was all done very, very efficiently. We had to wait less than 20 minutes.
Really?
A couple of maybe 5-6 hours later, we got the green code on our mobile phone. That's how it was handled. There was no case of COVID in Zhongshan except within that quarantine zone, and they handled it just like that. They basically told us to put on masks. Go on, Mario.
That's how it was handled. You know, we had every time there's a local
Xinjiang,
outbreak, that's how it gets handled. We had this happen. I think it was about 4 months ago up in Xinjiang.
Yeah, in Xinjiang.
Exactly the same thing. Just a well-organized 2 days to go ahead and test 6-8 million people.
Sure. So
can I go on to a little follow-up from that? I wrote an article about it, which got published inside of Chinese media, and a friend posted this article or sent this article or linked to this article to the ABC in Australia. The ABC contacted me and said, "Would you like to appear on this show to talk about this?" And I said, "Sure, I would, yes, but you need to understand that I don't follow the ABC narrative of China bad." 4 hours later, I got a "Thank you for your interest. We will decline at this time." So in other words, they have no interest in talking to me about something positive about China. And because I highlighted that, I don't follow this China bad narrative, I was disenfranchised by the ABC in Australia. So that's another story.
Jerry,
that's how I wanted to link it to this Uighur situation, if I may. I don't know if, Jerry, you were interviewed during the time of testing, but I was interviewed. Zig Lickman was interviewed. A few people were interviewed because that's what China media does. They said, like, okay, we're doing a good thing. We're trying to do the good thing. So let's bring cameras out, or let's ask people to make videos and tell what they experience, what they're going through during this period of time. And I did so. They asked me, can you make a video and show us the vaccination site? I said, well, that was vaccination, the testing side. I was like, that was last night. So I went out, put my camera. I was like, this place was full of people. Getting tested yesterday, and blah 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 blah. So yes, the Chinese media and the Chinese government, which they like to call themselves the propaganda department, which I say, it should be just public relations, because propaganda has a negative connotation. That's what they do. They try to show people that they're doing good things, or to correct the narrative.
Both of you have just made the point, and you particularly made the point when you showed what the New York Times was saying. They don't believe the local Chinese people. They think the local Chinese people are making this up or coerced to say this. I don't know how you can disbelieve 1.4 billion people or 1.3 billion people.
Jerry, they don't sorry, I'm not saying it, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. They don't disagree. They don't not believe the Chinese. They don't not believe the Uyghurs. They don't not believe everybody. They don't believe everybody. They don't.
That's the point. That is the point.
They say, "Oh, Mario is of course he's in with the CCP. He's a panda hugger. He gets paid and this and that." And I'm just like, from the beginning to the end, folks, I'm an independent entrepreneur and I'm sharing my opinions. My opinions are positive about China because they're rooted in evident, observable fact. If they weren't rooted in observable, evident fact, I wouldn't be expressing those opinions. So they're not opinions. Yes. They're just observation of the facts. No. You do that because you get paid. No. Oh, I don't get paid. Well, I don't get paid. Then they say, then he gets paid under the table. I mean, no matter what, you can't.
There are actually three. There are three different allegations made against me, and I'm certain you will have had the same three. Now, anybody watching this, anybody who views this, needs to understand what happens. I came to China 17 years ago. I didn't particularly like China, and I wasn't planning on staying a long time. I found that I wasn't ready to go home after about a year of a contract, and I decided to stay a little longer and maybe have another year here. And then I met my wife, and things changed, and here we are. Now, about 3 years ago, I started to change from the I don't trust the Chinese government is authoritarian, to hang on a minute, there's a very good reason for them to do this. And I started to put this into blogs. I'm a blogger, not a vlogger. I write things rather than show things. And there's three different things that happen to me. Some people say, you are being paid to do this. I promise everybody I'm not being paid. If anyone can prove I'm being paid, I will give them the keys to my apartment and the title deeds. I do not get paid for any interview ever. Fernando, are we getting paid today, by the way? Are we getting paid?
Your checks are in the mail.
Okay, checks in the mail, right, got that. So the second one is the visa. The only reason I say nice things is because I need to keep my visa to stay in here. Well, that's absolutely not true. I am married here. I'm retired now, and I have a visa. And in the next few months, I will be applying for permanent residency. I won't apply for citizenship, but permanent residency. And the third one is, and this is the great one, I have to say good things about China, because if I don't, my wife will be incarcerated in some kind of camp or educational center, whatever they want to call it. So I'm in fear of her safety, my family's safety, if I don't say nice things. So that's the three things that are alleged almost every time I write something about China. I guess you guys have the same thing.
For me, it's usually, he has a business. If he doesn't say good things about China, they'll close his business down or whatever. And I'm like, okay, true. So if I'm not a business owner, but I'm employed, then you're gonna say that I'm saying good things because my boss will fire me if I don't. So either you're employed or a business owner, you're gonna be attacked and said that, that's why you're saying nice things. Mario, you wanted to say something on this topic?
Have we lost Mario? Oh no! Oh, I thought he'd gone for a shower.
No, I did. It did disconnect for a minute. I'm back. We're good. Okay. It's all a false propaganda. The entire narrative is a false propaganda trope to imply, to dehumanize the reality of Chinese people, to dehumanize you and me, to dehumanize the entire Chinese experience. Now, it's very upsetting. And it is upsetting, by the way. I always say this: never be anti-American. This isn't about being anti-American. Don't be anti-China. Don't be anti-Europe. Don't be anti-anybody. That's bad. That's childish and immature. I want America to do well. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, it isn't. America did well back in the 40s through 80s. That was their peak. And they built the American dream. And now they're having massive problems. And then cyclically, during the same 30-year period that America is declining due to primarily political corruption and favoring of the wealth, that's the root of the wealthy. That's the root of the decline of American society. At the same time, it happens to be that China's society has risen up and learned from many mistakes and lessons that it made, plus observing what other countries have done. Look, it's not an opinion. China is today the world's, I say this all the time, I'll say it again today on every show. China today is the largest, safe, stable, successful, and capable country on the planet. It is. It's evidently observably true by a number of boxes that you can tick off. And that bothers a lot of people. It's a threat to American hegemony, which I don't mind America being powerful, but I do mind America massacring and innocent people, lying, warmongering. This is what they've been doing for the last 70 years. And then they accuse other countries of doing what they're doing, the Uighur genocide, right? When they're the ones that are killing all the innocent Muslims for the last year. I mean, how many millions of Muslims have they killed? It's not a joke. It's like it's in the historical record. These are not, this is not rhetoric. We're talking about the fact. But then they turn around and they point the finger at Uyghurs. This is crazy what they're doing. So I've completely, like you, Jerry, I've completely lost faith. I don't even respond anymore because it's all just this one giant fake narrative.
I want to plug a video that I'm going to be releasing either today or tomorrow. It's an interesting question. Are you a communist? I asked myself if I'm a communist. Jerry, are you a communist?
I've got a slightly longer answer than yes or no. Is that okay?
Oh, I have a 14-minute answer.
Okay. Well, the answer is I don't think so. But I'll tell you what. If you know my background, and you'll find my friend Cheeky Mark in Guangzhou, who often makes snarky comments about my background. I was a police officer, but I'm also the grandson of a coal miner. So I knew what hard work was when I was a kid growing up because I saw my granddad going out to work every day and coming home. He retired at 65 and died before his 66th birthday. So I come from a very, very conservative background. My mother and father, my mother's family was quite wealthy. My father's family were the coal miners. My father went off to sea to become a master mariner and was a very successful businessman towards the end of his life. He was managing fleets of oil tankers for British Petroleum, BP. So he was in a very, very good position. When we grew up, we were very poor. We turned into quite a moderately wealthy family. My dad is still quite wealthy. My mum passed away, but she left a fair bit of money behind when she went. That kind of helped settle me down as well. Now, my background being this sort of conservative, middle class, former police officer who used to fight on the front lines of the race riots and the industrial riots. I was there during Maggie's period of time, Margaret Thatcher in the UK. And during that period of time, I definitely formed conservative opinions. I would have voted conservative if I bothered to vote. I very rarely did. But if I was going to vote, I would have been a conservative. Since coming to China, I would say I'm probably the least likely but most vocal socialist that you could probably meet. Now, that doesn't mean I've never read Marx, I've never read Engels, I've never read Lenin or Stalin or anything like that. I just feel that the system that we have here in China, the system that they have, I shouldn't say we, but I live under that system, works incredibly well for a massive number of people. Now, it's fair to say it doesn't please everybody, but it pleases 98% of the population. There is no other country in the world that does that. 98% approval rate for their government. And that's not their own government statistics. That's externally managed statistics. It's coming from Harvard said 93. Go on.
And Gallup. Harvard,
Gallup, Pew. Yep, Harvard, Gallup, Pew, and there was was it McGill University, I think? One of the universities in Canada came up with this 98% figure. Now, okay, let's say they're 10% wrong and it's only 89%. So friggin' what? This is a very, very well-managed country, and it is socialism with Chinese characteristics. So I guess I'm not a communist, but I think I'm a committed socialist now. There you go, there's your answer. No.
Mario, I have a question for you. Let's say we go to New York, to Yonkers, where you're from, right? The Italian area, and we said like pizza is horrible, and we showed that video to all those Italian people in New York. What do you think they would say to the camera?
Yeah. Why are you making such a childish, stupid video to bait people to even have this discussion? What's wrong with you?
What are the chances that most people would say the same? What are the chances that most people would say something similar? That you're crazy. What are you talking about? That's not true. Blah blah blah. What are the chances of that being?
What are the chances of most every Italian on the camera looking at the camera and saying, "What's wrong with you?"
You know what I'd say to that? You're right if you put pineapple on it.
Oh yes.
Or corn. Or corn. Every Chinese pizza has corn on it.
That's a cardinal sin. There's a sign on the wall in the Vatican. Never. It's a sin. It's a mortal sin in the Bible. Never put corn and pineapple on a pizza.
So that's the resemblance to the videos made by Chinese media, I suppose. And when they go to the Uighur people, they're like, "Hey, Pompeo is saying that there's a genocide here." They're like, "What are you talking about?" Well, in Uighur accent, I would say, it's the same thing. I mean, what do you expect?
It's a fact that the repetition of those messages is repeated over and over again with similar words because they're using the only words they have to say that's ridiculous, that's rubbish, it doesn't happen.
They barely speak English. They need help with the English language. This would be like someone complaining. Let's say that it's Mario, Fernando, and Jerry, and we don't have good Chinese skills at all. Okay, at all. We hardly know Chinese at all. And then they ask us to make some Chinese videos. So obviously we're all going to sound, say promoting Shanghai, something like that. Obviously we're all going to sound similar because we need help with our language skills.
Actually, I don't like Shanghai.
What does that have to do with the truth? What does that have to do with the truth and authenticity of what we're saying? Not a damn thing.
The other thing is that they're probably using the same translator to translate different words into English, and that's a limitation.
And the similarity that I made when I was tweeting was that it's the same thing that they did when we had this scare with COVID. They came here and said, like, "What do you think? What's taking place?" "Oh, everything is fine. Everything's so expedite. Everything so we feel safe." We all end up saying the same thing because that's what we are experiencing. So, okay, I think that the New York Times thing, it's settled. This is just absolute nonsense designed to just continue this negative rhetoric against China. Why don't we move on to? Yeah.
Wait.
Mario,
I got to. Because the reason we're having this live stream, Fernando, is because I called you yesterday because I was so upset about that video. I needed someone to talk. That's the truth. Because this is what I want to say to the New York Times. Spit on you. Okay? And I'll tell you why. You disparage and disrespect genuine Uighur people who are defending their life and their society. And you disparage and disrespect them. Honestly, screw you. I'm so angry about this. Okay, now we go on to the next subject.
Yeah, the next subject, which is another one that we talked about on that phone call that really upset you. This was also from Twitter, I think. The LA Times claiming that Chinese youth are brainwashed and they live in a bubble. Okay. All right, so we brought this topic up because you mentioned it to me during the conversation. So Mario, I'll leave the cameras on to you.
Folks, I'm acting on purpose to try to be more entertaining, in case you were wondering. I'm not crazy. Fernando, again, we go back to the realities, and they try to paint a picture that's a completely false picture. It's crazy. And the disadvantage that China has is that everything that's happening in China that's all good, 98% of it that's happening is happening in the Mandarin language. So people in the West have no idea what's really going on in China, and what is going on in China amongst Chinese people is happening in what language? It's happening in Mandarin, okay? And The specific thing that we can talk about is where we can really find the minds of people in China, and that is in social media. Okay, they don't need Twitter, they don't need Facebook, they don't even want it. Okay, they have their own in their own language. This is their life in their own language, and of course, I'm talking about Kuaishou, I'm talking about Weibo, I'm talking about Bilibili, and I'm talking about thank you, for a couple of others. Okay, if you go to even videos, I did a series of videos a while back for Guancha. I did a series of videos back. Okay, there are millions of people on Chinese social media making all kinds of comments about all kinds of stuff, and there is plenty of criticism about China. Period. End of story. Now, yes, Elaine, my bathrobe, because I'm at the Kangxi International Hot Springs Resort, so it's appropriate for me to be in my bathrobe, coming to you live from Bunshi. So the point is, well, I'll go in the comment section. So the point is very, very clear. Again, they're trying to say things that are completely untrue. Now, I have my own report that I did. Even if they want to read in English, okay, and learn about the world and talk about the world, they can. It's not censored. It's not blocked. What did Mario just say? I counted a list of 75 of the world's largest, most popular English international news, life and culture, and even religious websites that are not blocked in China. Obviously, the Chinese government knows what websites those are, okay? 3 or 4 or 5 top U.S. news websites are a perfect example, okay? But there's a total of 75. So if they really wanted to block Chinese people's minds, then they're doing a lousy job of it, right? And they're fully capable. So this is just a nonsense, bullshit accusation that Chinese people have it's more of this thought control nonsense. It's just another version of that. They keep rehashing this crap over and over and over again. And folks, it's completely untrue.
Jerry, what's your take on this part of Chinese youth being brainwashed?
I spent 16 years in the education industry. So I've trained teachers. I've been an IELTS examiner. I've been a high school and university teacher, lecturer. I've done all kinds of different things. And I would say, like almost everything that is in Western media, there is a modicum of truth in the story, which is then misinterpreted as being valid under Western cultural norms. So, for example, the education system, are they being brainwashed? The answer to that is no, they're not. Are they being educated the same way as kids are in the West? No, they're not. They're very, very different. And this is an incredibly, no, they're not. But this is an incredibly important thing that most people seem to miss. The point that they're missing is that the Chinese education system is designed to get the kids from primary school into secondary school, and they have an exam called the Zhongkao to do that. Once they're into secondary school, they then geared up to get them into university, and they have a Gaokao, which is their higher exam to get them, university entrance exam to get them into that. Every single thing that they do in the Chinese education system is geared up to getting them into those exams and through to a Chinese university. Then every IELTS examiner who I've ever met would say the same thing. These kids are brainwashed, they don't know anything. But in fact, culturally, it's actually different to that. These kids know much more than we know about the stuff they need to know, but they don't know how to take a Western exam. And consequently, the word goes out that these kids are forced-fed information, and they never learn to be creative. They never learn to be innovative. Well, we know for a fact that the 5G space stations, Chinese kids go on to be extremely innovative researchers, developers, scientists, everything else. And that's based upon an education system that is teacher-taught, teacher-centric, not interactive. So really, there needs to be a lot more studies on this. And there are some, and I've actually written some myself. There are more studies available and coming up, but there's a lot less than there should be. And I think if people in the West understood that Chinese people are educated in a way that suits their education system and their university system, but doesn't actually suit the Western education and university system, then you can say, well, there's a difference. It's not that they're brainwashed. It's not that the Chinese system is bad. It's not that the Western system is good, but they are very, very different. And the people in the West don't understand why they are different. People in China do. They understand they're different, but they know that they're differently geared up. And that's why, as an IELTS teacher, sometimes I teach people, I have to teach them how to unlearn for their productive skills, their writing and their speaking. I have to teach them how to stop doing what they always did and be a little. It's not about what you have remembered. It's about what you have experienced and how you express that. And that once I can get that through to these kids and they stop remembering, my name is and I come from this kind of thing in an exam, then they are not brainwashed. They are really quite creative, quite innovative. They just have been taught the wrong way for the Westerners. It's a difference. It's not incorrect.
I made a video where I thought, well, this is a challenge that China has in the upcoming future is they have this meritocracy in which, well, if you excel, if you produce, if you are good at what you do, then you get promoted and you get to higher levels and higher echelons of government and productivity and enterprise and whatnot. But that is now being faced with innovation because innovation relies on trial and error. So when they go out there and they try to innovate and they make mistakes, that's a little bit opposed to meritocracy. So how is China kind of like combining these two things? This is one. I woke up this morning to the Washington Post writing an article about everything that China has done in the last the Communist Party of China has done in the last 100 years has been pitfalls and recoveries, and we are now in a recovery. What is the next pitfall? It's just corrections. You know what I mean? They know something is not right. For example, when Xi Jinping took charge in 2012, I think it was, the biggest issue was corruption. So he came in and he fixed corruption. It's basically what it is. Then Xiaoping realized, okay, we need to be more productive. So reform and opening up. Let's build a strong middle class that is going to be able to sustain the domestic economy and will benefit from imports and exports. And that's what they did. So it's a system that is constantly reinventing itself and fixing the problems that it finds along the way. But all the good things that China has done, they're setting up for another pitfall. That's what the Washington Post wrote this morning.
The Washington Post needs to take a look at the Harvard Business Review. There was an article in the Harvard Business Review probably 25, 30 years ago, back in the 90s, maybe even the 80s, by a guy called Greiner. It's called the Greiner curve. And basically what it means is every company in the world will go through a series of growth spurts and crises. Doesn't matter how big the company is, doesn't matter how fast they grow, they go through these 5 different crises as part of it. So when an entrepreneur sets up a new company, it's a very big, fast growth process. Then you find that as it gets bigger, you need to have some administrative processes. And that's a crisis starting to arise because you don't have a human resource policy. You don't have a training policy because the entrepreneur taught everybody how to do the job. That's the first crisis. That as you grow through that, then you get a crisis of management because it's too big. China's going through exactly the same thing on a macro scale rather than a small independent scale. Right. But what they're doing is they are, it's absolutely true, they're setting themselves up for their next crises. But so far, they've managed each and every one. They've redirected their systems. They've approached everything in a way that helps them get into the next crisis and then develop from that crisis. And that's exactly how they do it. And it's what America has failed to do. They've gone into a crisis right now of infrastructure. They have bridges collapsing, houses collapsing, roads that don't work, hospitals that are too expensive for everybody. Their guns, don't talk about their guns, their prisons complex system. And everything is geared up to making more money for the gun manufacturers than it is for making money for the people who actually need it. China's the opposite. That's probably something that the Wall Street Journal, was it Wall Street or WAPO that said this?
Washington Post.
Okay, so yeah, they just need to understand the Greiner curve. Tell them to go back to Business Economics 101.
Mario, what do you think about democracy in China? Because what I've read is that they're saying that as China develops and as China modernizes, as the youth gets exposed to the West more and more and more, they're going to be asking for democracy. They're going to be asking for less control, less, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What is your take on that?
Yeah, my take on that is the as is the case with Uyghur genocide, the exact opposite of what you just said is what's true. Okay, the Chinese people at this stage of society are looking at China and rejecting the United States, American, Western democratic model, and accepting that the China model is better. Why are they doing that? Because of patriotic national pride. Yeah, sort of. But where did patriotic national pride come from? The fact that there's a reason to have patriotic national pride, namely that their country has gotten the greatest result in the history of mankind, an unprecedented result in terms of rising up a country and modernizing a country successfully for this period of, let's call it 40 years, without even going without killing anybody along the way. I mean, without being a warmongering, imperialist, hegemonic terrorist, So they have a lot of reason to be proud and to feel patriotic. And right now, the 100-year celebration of the Communist Party of China is something to celebrate. They've done a great job. And if they hadn't done a great job, I wouldn't be on a live stream saying that they've done a great job, but they did a great job, right? So what else is there to say about it? Everything the two of you previously said in the last 5 minutes is well said. Well said. Both
and the other thing that I have to say that people don't understand, and this is something that we get attacked all the time, but isn't YouTube blocked in China? Isn't Facebook blocked in China? Isn't Twitter blocked in China? Do you think the youth, the tech-savvy youth, doesn't know how to get a VPN? You think they don't know how to? And here's the thing, VPN is like marijuana in Amsterdam. You're not allowed to sell it, but if you have it, it's fine.
True, you're not allowed to share a VPN. That's the law. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I want to make a couple of clarifications. I love you bringing this up, Fernando. Let me add some clarifications. Okay. Let's be very, very clear. YouTube, Google, and Twitter are not blocked in China. They are not banned and censored by China. They are companies who choose not to do business in China. They're not registered to do business in China. LinkedIn is registered to do business in China. IBM is registered to do business in China. There are literally millions of foreign companies who are actively doing business in China. Okay. Google, YouTube, and Twitter choose not to. That's their choice. They're not banned and kicked out. They haven't come into the country because they don't want to. Fine, that's their choice. Now, in the case of Facebook, yes, they are banned in China, and for very good reason. As you know, back in 2003, 4, 5, the East Turkmenistan terrorist group was using Facebook, coordinating their attacks, which massacred over 200 people in the terrorist attacks. When China went to Facebook and said, "Whoa, you've got terrorists using your platform to kill people in our country. Hand us the information, block them from doing that," Facebook wouldn't cooperate with the Chinese government to catch the criminals. So Facebook legitimately got booted out of the country, and that's specifically the reason why.
Jerry, I saw a video that you made recently talking about democracy in China and how it is not the same as democracy in the West, and how the youth, the middle-aged people, and everyone is involved. Could you talk a little bit about what you said in that video?
Yeah, sure. I've been married since 2009, and I've known my wife since 2005. And I only found out Chinese New Year last year that both my in-laws are members of the party. They've both been party members for over 50 years. So they're just about to get awarded this medal that long-term members are going to get for the 100th birthday party. And so this really surprised me because they'd never mentioned it. There was no reason to mention it, of course. But and I've been asking them questions. They don't speak very good Mandarin, and my Cantonese is crap. So I use my wife as a translator when I'm talking to my in-laws. And I've asked them quite a lot of questions about this, and they have a very, very good democratic process, which starts at grassroots level. So effectively, they vote for people to run their own village. They live in a very small village inside of a town, which is inside of the city. They're in Zhongshan. They're 19 kilometers away from where I live now. And their village is called, no, I better not say this, keep my wife's family out of this. But their village is not far away from here. And they've been living there all their lives. And they're both members of the party. And they vote for the people who manage their village. They can also vote for the people who manage the town. So the village is inside of the town. The town is inside of the city. Now, the town people then vote for the people who manage the city. If they vote for the wrong person, then, of course, the local people will say next year, you're not going to get a vote. And they get votes every year. And this is how I found out. The local party member and the guy who is one of the running people of the village came to their house for a chat. And I said, oh, it's nice to see him. I haven't seen him for years. Oh, he comes every year at this time because he's looking for their vote. So he looks for their vote to be put forward for the village committee and then the town committee beyond that. And those people vote for the city committees. The city committees vote for the provincial committees. The provincial committees vote for the regional and then the central. And so it goes through. Now, the only way that you can become Xi Jinping or a member of the Politburo is by being very efficient and by being very good at what you do. You don't get to be in charge of this country until you've been in charge of a large province. You don't get to be in charge of a large province until you've been the mayor of a big city. You don't get to be the mayor of a big city until you've been the business leader of a smaller town, and so on, all the way down. So it's very much a meritocracy rather than a democracy, but it's a voted meritocracy.
Mm-hmm.
Fernando?
Mario? Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry. Yes. And yes. Thank you to Xinhua News. About 2 months ago, they interviewed me and asked me to talk about democracy in China. And I did up a really nice 5-minute video. Liu Xin with CGTN, in fact, shared and retweeted that video out. I was very happy about that. Thanks to Liu Xin. And it's talking about the fact that the Chinese government from the ground up, as Jerry said, has these democratic characteristics, period. Now, the Chinese government is right now one of the most successful, effective governments on the planet. Terrific. Good for China. You know, in the past, they had a lot of problems. They went through difficult periods. But right now, our generation, our society, we're living in the sweet spot with China. And that's great. That's terrific. And within China's system, Fernando, you mentioned it earlier. Do you think they could have been able to accomplish all this and be this remarkably successful if they didn't adjust themselves along the way, their own system of governance and policies and guidelines? They've been adjusting all along the way as a one-party system. That's what they do. Well, how do they know what to adjust? They listen to the people. The democratic process is going out, and besides the voting that Jerry mentioned at the lower levels, which begins the process, they go out and they constantly survey and ask. They do surveys and town halls asking for people's opinions. And that's how they form policy. Their service to the people of the country is where their legitimacy comes from. If they screw that up, they're in a lot of trouble. They're going to be in a lot of trouble. Speaking of which, protest is even allowed. There's big protests. Cyrus just did an article. Cyrus just did a video about that. There's plenty of protests in China too, but all of these things fall within guidelines of civility. You're not allowed to go out and be a maniac and disturb the society. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to protest. It means you need to do it like an adult. So there's plenty of all of these democratic features that exist within this country, which is a combination of socialist and democratic, and obviously capitalistic, and entrepreneurship needs to be there. China's right now got this hybrid government that's doing it all, doing it better than anyone else previously has ever done it. And well, there's people in the West who are threatened by that.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, Mario, if the government stops doing what it's doing and becomes less popular, you will see the Chinese people letting them know, as they did with the Li Wenliang thing, the doctor who died with COVID a year ago. When the Chinese people got on social media and said, this is shit, this is wrong. And in fact, it wasn't that wrong, but there was a very, very strong feeling of anger about it. Yes. And that was understood. But within a month, Chinese government had started to act. And by December, they had created new whistleblowing laws and have actually changed their policy on what to do and how to handle this kind of situation.
Thank you. They responded. They actually responded. Yeah. You said that.
And the moment they don't respond, they will be vilified in social media, and it will be the start of the next revolution. You know, that's the problem. The Chinese government knows they need to keep the Chinese people happy. The Chinese people run the CPC. The CPC doesn't run the Chinese people.
Yep. And the billionaires don't tell the government what to do. The government tells the billionaires what to do.
Yeah, the billionaires. Yeah, we've noticed that too.
That's one of the things that I mentioned in this video that I'm going to publish soon about am I a communist? I basically say the thing with China is that you have capitalism, but is capped. I mean, there are limits and there are controls to what companies can do, and that cap or that limit is, well, is this going to be favorable to the people? Is it going to be good for the population? And that's where they walk in and say, like, hey, no, you can't do this. For example, extreme monopolies and things like that. That's not allowed. So kind of like China takes everything that you see in the West, but does it in a different way, in a way that actually serves the people.
It's what the West says they do and thinks they do. When the Western governments give tax rebates, tax incentives to rich companies, big companies, the idea is that those companies should trickle that down. It's called trickle-down economics. Those companies should trickle that down, spend more on research and development, more on manufacturing, more on human resources, but they don't. They give their shareholders a bigger dividend, they give their CEOs a bigger bonus, and the trickle-down effect is gone. Now, Deng Xiaoping very famously once said, it's okay for people to get rich. There's no reason why communism or socialism needs people to be poor. What they need to be is, if they are rich, they need to be able to bring people up with them. So when Alibaba and Tencent and these kinds of companies started, they employ thousands and thousands of people. That helps local economies. They deliver thousands and thousands of goods or services, and that helps to stimulate the entire economy. So those rich people at the top, perfectly all right to be rich in China, as long as while you are rich, you're bringing other people into that bracket that's above the bracket where they currently are. Absolute poverty is gone now, and it doesn't exist in China anymore, although there are some people that I would say, Jesus, that's abject poverty. I've seen houses where people live and it's really bad. You know, it's not good in some places, but they are better than they were last year and the year before. It is slowly improving in every aspect of every person's life in China that I've seen and interacted with.
Mario,
yes.
Mario, we just finished a very long project looking at, well, poverty. What can you say about that?
Well, 100%. I mean, I've done 2 poverty alleviation documentaries for CGTN. Fernando, you and I just finished a project that we both know. Everyone knows it was production, but we can't go into the details of what it was yet because it's not released yet. So that's fine. But everybody knows we were on a road trip in a production, and we were looking at how local economies were being lifted up. Look, there's only one thing to say in this particular area, and that is that the Chinese government, again, we're in the sweet spot. We're in the sweet spot. Look, America's sweet spot was, you know, from 50 to 90. That was America's sweet spot, and it's gone, baby. And it's disturbing the whole world that it's gone. I wish it wasn't gone, but it is. The politicians they went off the rails over there. They're out of their minds. They ruined the country, and they're affecting the whole world. But China's on the up and up, baby. China's in the sweet spot right now. Okay. Now, the thing about that sweet spot is they're doing now what America did back then, but they're doing it on a much higher scale. Back then for America, it was what, 100, 200 million people, now 330 million. And they created the middle class American dream post Roosevelt, etc. They did it. They did it. Beautiful. They built up the beautiful American dream. Then they bombed it and ruined it, but they did build it up. That was the historically most unprecedented buildup of a middle class society up to that point in time. China has now exceeded that by a scale of about 4. And they're doing it. They're building society broadly. We can only hope and pray that the Chinese government never, and it seems like they're going to make sure that the worst of Western government stays the hell out of this country, that they don't make the same mistakes and start just favoring the wealthy, which is the problem in the States now. So here in China, the recovery, the building of the society, the rising up of the society is a much broader experience for the entire society. They're doing it right, they're doing it on purpose, and I hope it lasts a long, long time.
All right, guys, why don't we move on to the next topic, which is one that I have a couple of things to say. The whole solar panel ban that just took place. I want to start with you, gentlemen. What do you know about this? What is your take on this particular ban? And if there's not much background information, I can give you some because I did a bit of research before I published my video. Jerry, do you have any take on this?
Yes, I do, of course. The bans and the sanctions and the things that are happening inside of Xinjiang are very, very purely designed for one thing, and that is to benefit the American industries. The cotton bans, the solar panel bans. America has got problems with these products. There's been tariffs on solar panel stuff for years in America. And I'll tell you what has actually happened. As far as I can tell, not one single person has ever attended any of the factories and had a look and found evidence of human rights abuses. The opposite has happened. The Better Cotton Industry, the WRAP, I'm not sure what exactly that stands for. These are organizations that go into these areas to check for. Now, Better Cotton Initiative, not industry, BCI, Better Cotton Initiative, pulled out of Xinjiang because not because of their concerns. The BBC said because of concerns about forced labor, BCI pulled out of Xinjiang. BCI never pulled out of Xinjiang because of concerns of forced labor. They pulled out of Xinjiang because of allegations of forced labor, which caused concerns in America to create sanctions, which meant that had they gone back in to look for these allegations, they could have been sanctioned themselves. Now, at the same time, the leader of BCI happens to be the CEO of, I think it's America's second largest cotton company. Yep. So it's obviously in his benefit if 80% of the world's cotton, 80% of China's cotton, and I think China is like 40% of the world. I'm not sure the exact numbers of that, but it's 80% of China's cotton comes out of Xinjiang. If 80% of China's cotton is no longer wanted by the rest of the world, where are they going to go? They're going to go to American cotton or Egyptian cotton or Indian cotton or Bangladesh cotton. Now, the standard of the cotton coming out of China is equal to the best in the world. That's a fact. And what I'd really like to know is, when is America going to sanction John Deere? John Deere has as its largest customer the construction corps of Xinjiang. That's John Deere's largest customer. Come on, let's start these sanctions properly. Sanction your own companies. When are they going to sanction KFC, Marriott, Hilton? All of these companies are currently operating in Xinjiang, all of them. Yet they only want to stop the cotton exports and the products made with cotton exports. Now they want to stop. And the reason they've gone into the solar panels is the allegations of genocide have now been refuted. There are no genocides going on there. If there was, we would see the refugees. We would have evidence instead of stories. And that's all we've got, stories and anecdotes right now. So the whole thing is on the basis of they've run out of initiative to pursue and get this China narrative or China bad narrative about the genocide. So if it's not genocide, it must be something else. Let's make it something else. And I can tell you, it's not. It's not. So that's my take on it. It's not just solar panels, it's cotton. And both of them are very big American industries that are struggling to maintain business because China is doing it better and cheaper. End of story.
It's very simple. It's very protectionist. You can't
That's
compete.
all it is.
What do you do? You protect your businesses. Mario, what's your take on this solar panel situation?
Sure. I had already refuted the forced labor allegations in my Xinjiang Blue Skies and Santa Claus video for CGTN back in September of 2020. So now here we are in, how many months, more than a year later, and they're just rehashing the same forced labor lies, okay? So when people make this allegation and then they pigeonhole it specifically into the solar panel industry, it's more than obvious that it's economic terrorism. And skipping that part of it, because economic terrorism is economic terrorism. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're doing this for economic reasons. This is their way of wresting business away. This is very malign way of doing things. But let me just go back and cover the fact that there's nothing there to these allegations. I said it again back in September 2020 in my video, and let me update it now. Okay, Muji, Apple, Volkswagen, and one other company whose name is skipping my mind right now, in this last round of forced labor allegations, they all have come out and confirmed and repeated that for over a decade, they regularly do announced and unannounced inspections and never found a violation. That's Muji, Apple, Volkswagen, and one other company I can't skip in my mind. I can't think of who it is. So there it is. It's done. It's a false allegation. It's economic terrorism. That's what it is. And it's just a repeat of what they did to Huawei. Okay. That's all it is. I'm on Huawei's thought leadership platform, and we talk about reality. And the reality is crystal clear. Okay. The reason that they got upset with Huawei is not because Huawei's products were a threat to spying and your data. It was the opposite. Huawei refused to allow them to put spy software in their equipment, which Microsoft and
Google.
There's 3 or 4 other telecom companies are required by the NSA to allow the NSA to tap into their equipment to spy on Americans in the world. And Huawei was like, we're not going to let you do that. So it was the opposite of the truth. It's not that Huawei spies on you. It's that Huawei equipment refused to allow the NSA to spy on you. So this is economic terrorism. And then now they want to try and destroy Huawei for this reason. It's economic terrorism. I'll stop there. I'm just so disgusted.
And look, I made the video based on the Bloomberg.
Oh, we lost him. Sketches was the other company. Quiet Jagun has pointed it out. Sketches was the other company.
Thank you, Jerry. That's the one. Skechers. Thank you very much. Skechers.
Hey, you're back.
No, this finicky mouse. I touch it and it goes back. No, I wanted to talk about the Bloomberg report. Basically, if you go back and you look at how they participate in this economic terrorism, they basically went to Xinjiang, saw nothing,
right,
proved nothing.
Right.
We're able to produce zero evidence. So there's got to be something wrong here. But and the way they word these things is really annoying. The conclusion of that Bloomberg video is the consumer now has a moral decision to make. Go for green energy or consume Xinjiang polluted. I think the word was polluted with forced labor, Xinjiang solar panels. I'm like, that's where did you fabricated that conclusion out of nothing.
Like an infomercial. It's like an infomercial. Tony Robbins infomercial. Remember those?
Yeah.
It's not the news anymore. It's an infomercial. It's a staged, planned, scripted infomercial that has nothing to do with reality, that has an agenda, that has nothing to do with facts and truth. And by the way, no, I'm not a communist. I never answered that question.
Hey, do you guys remember this all started quite a long time ago? You may or may not remember this. The BBC created a documentary, and it was about the company that does all of the Apple products in China. They have 3 million employees in southern China, in Dongguan, Shenzhen, and Foxconn, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't going to mention the name, but there you go, Foxconn. It's okay. But yeah, they created this documentary where they said, in the space of 12 months, 67 people have committed suicide. And I thought about this at the time. Now, at the time, I wasn't involved in any of this political stuff. The shenanigans weren't going on in my head at the time. But I thought, hang on a minute. I come from the UK. The second largest city in the UK is Birmingham. It's got about 3 million people. I bet you there was more than 67 suicides last year in Birmingham. And 3 million employees and 67 committed suicide. This is not particularly, I mean, it's tragic that people commit suicide, of course, but it's not particularly different to any other environment where 3 or 4 million people live. And then there was the other thing. They kept showing people to sleep at their desks. These people are so exhausted that they sleep at their desk. Every kid in school sleeps during lunch break at their desk. It's a philosophy that they have. It's a culture that they have. Every kid, every factory worker, every office worker. I've been in schools where the teachers have beds. Yeah, no, they have beds in the staff room. And then after lunch, they go for a sleep. Yeah, it's just common. So they made this thing look so sinister. And that was how, I believe that was the start of it all. And it was more than 10 years ago. I remember watching it and thinking, I'd only been in China a couple of years at the time. And I think, these guys know nothing about China. That's everywhere. And as I was watching it, I was actually watching it in the days before YouTube stopped operating. I was watching it in a staff room in China with my headphones on so as not to disturb the other teachers who were sleeping. It was just that's what they do every single lunchtime. When they get a break, they put their heads down, bring a pillow into work or pillow around the neck, or sleep on a fold-up bed that they keep behind their desk. It's so common. It's just a lack of understanding the culture that creates this problem that they have. They don't understand what goes on a daily basis inside of China, so they interpret it as a sinister. Because if that happened in a factory, if half the staff were having a sleep at the desk in a factory in the UK, or probably the USA or Colombia or anywhere for that matter, Colombia, do you have the siesta system, Fernando? So
nope.
No? Okay. So I know that some Spanish countries have the siesta system, and they do have a sleep. But this is so common, and it caused people to start looking at China. People looked at Apple. People looked at Foxconn differently. Well, in fact, Foxconn is no different to any other company.
Jerry, just Latin America, I believe I'm accurate when I'm saying this, most Latin American countries, Spain, Portugal, Italy, they all have quite traditional, lazy afternoon type culture.
Siesta.
Siesta, or even the business is closed for the whole afternoon, or you take a break, etc. Yeah. So again, they take some aspect and try to paint it black. Lee
P just came in with a comment there. Sorry, they don't care about the truth. Sorry, not that. They understand the culture. They just want to brainwash people that it's sinister. The truth is 90% of Westerners do not understand Chinese culture. They don't understand the education system. They don't understand the working system. People live in dormitories. People wear uniforms. People walk from the dormitory to the factory to the canteen. And if you look at this from a satellite image, as ASPI often do, and my mate Nathan Russa analyzes this, if they're wearing a uniform and they're traveling from the cell block to the workstation, and then they're walking from there back to the cell. They're not. They're walking from the dormitory to the canteen to the factory. That's how they work in China.
No, they're in concentration camps.
Gentlemen, I want to make a very quick comment. A very good question to the panel and to the audience. Why do you think attack particularly the cotton industry and the solar panel industry. Here's my take. Because they are one of the largest drivers of income for Xinjiang. In the south of Xinjiang, there's still a lot of hand labor when it comes to picking cotton. And solar panels were together, they produce, I think it was like up to 60 something percent of the solar panels of the world, these 4 companies in Xinjiang. So by attacking them, by banning them, what are they causing? They're causing unemployment. They're causing financial disruption to the Uyghur people, the same Uyghur people that they claim to be helping. And what is the end game? The end game is to, well, create trouble for the people of Xinjiang and trouble for the government of Xinjiang to destabilize the region and hopefully create unrest. And that unrest, and that's what I call the plot that's in my video, will very likely, or at least they're hoping, will bring about separatism. Separatism that is connected to, well, the East Turkestan Islamic Movement or terrorist group that was delisted by Pompeo on his last day in office, to get rid of China in Xinjiang. That's what they want. That's basically why they're attacking. And that's why they're going for the highest, the most productive industries in Xinjiang.
They haven't stopped there, Fernando. The other one that they've sanctioned is tomatoes. Xinjiang produces millions of tons of tomatoes every year. And there's one other thing. And here's a really interesting fact that they've missed so far. So perhaps I shouldn't say this. There is one crop that is grown in California and is grown in Xinjiang and is not grown very many other places in the world. And that, it's not grapes, but it's raisins and sultanas. Xinjiang, because they are a highly Muslim population, they grow lots and lots of grapes, but they make them into sultanas and raisins. And California is the only other place in the world that does this. So the reason that they're doing it is because they're not making, they do make wine. They actually make quite good wines up in that part of the world, especially in Ningxia. But in that region, the Muslims tend not to make so much of the wine, but they do grow grapes. Now, if we get into the stage where they start banning sultanas and raisins from Xinjiang, then we know that, I mean, we already know it, but they are just destroying every economy. The tomatoes are already gone. Next will be the grapes. Then it'll be the melons, the watermelons and the honey melons. And we've already lost cotton and we've lost solar panels. And of course, it's a massively rich oil area. It's massively rich in resources. I found out recently that potash is sourced in different parts of Xinjiang, particularly in the Taklamakan Desert. So these things are going to be sanctioned next, if they're not already.
Guys, I want to show something in the comment section. Somebody's asking, Muslims make wine. There are
Ningxia, yes.
There are many different kinds of Muslims. There are many people in Xinjiang who's Muslims, but they're not extremists. So they make wine and they drink wine. And there are others who don't. Like Mario's Catholic, I'm Catholic, but we don't practice the same way. Is the same with Muslims. So there's just to answer your questions. Yeah, traditionally they make wine.
I believe the largest Muslim minority population of China is the Hui.
They're mostly in Ningxia and Gansu. And Ningxia is actually the Ningxia Hui autonomous region. It's not a province.
Well, I ate the greatest beef on planet Earth during my 2 weeks in Gansu, Jerry, and it was made by Hui Muslims. It was just amazing.
And the wines up there in Ningxia particularly. Ningxia has its poverty alleviation program. They've imported some French and German winemakers to the region, and they're teaching the locals because it's perfect environment. It's a chalky, loamy, sandy, salty, whatever the soil is that is perfect for growing, and it has 300 days of sunshine a year, blah, 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 all the things. So they're making great wine.
Gentlemen, I want to have another question here. Something that Jerry brought when we were preparing for this video yesterday, Mario. You were saying, Jerry, that a lot of Westerners know nothing about China. And then we brought the question, do you think that Biden knows what's taking place in Xinjiang? Do you think
That was
that
my
Blinken,
question. Yeah.
yeah, do you think
Yeah.
that Blinken knows what's taking place in Xinjiang? So I'll lead the floor to you to make your comments on this particular idea, because I agree with you. Most people in America don't know what China is about and what's taking place in Xinjiang. But
Yeah.
do these people know?
It was a question. It was not an observation. Biden, as the president of the United States of America, has got fingers in so many different pies that he can't know everything. It's impossible to know everything. So he gets advice, and he has advisors telling him, and he has to trust those advisors to a degree. Now he questions them, gets the answers that he wants, and then forms an opinion, forms policy on the basis of the information that he's being given. Now, my question was, do you think Biden actually knows that this narrative is a false narrative? Because it is a false narrative. Do you think Biden knows this? Or do you think that Biden has actually been led to believe that this is a true narrative, and believes it's a true narrative because he believes his people? Now, in the case of Blinken, I'm fairly certain that the State Department knows. There is no question in my mind, none at all, that the United States ambassador or one of the senior staffers from the embassy, the British ambassador who's new in China, relatively new in China, she's been traveling around all over the place and vlogging about it and doing a very, very good job. And I've sent her text messages and emails, no reply yet. But the fact is, if she were to visit Xinjiang, she would immediately realize that the story, the narrative is not true. You've been to Xinjiang, I've been to Xinjiang. She has not gone, and she is not going. Now, why is she not going? Because the State Department, not the State Department, the Foreign Department in the UK, State Department in America, saying, don't go, don't go. Because the moment you go, we are now seen to be telling a lie. So the State Department knows. The State Department, I'm certain, Blinken knows the truth and is perpetuating the lie. My question really was, does Biden know the truth? Or does he believe the lie because he trusts the people who tell him that? That was just a question that I raised yesterday.
So, Mario, on Jerry's question, what is your take? Do you think that Biden knows what's taking place? Because we had different opinions with Jerry, right?
Yeah, we did.
My answer goes back to all the way back to Gulf of Tonkin and WMDs and all of the other puppet regime, actions, warmongering that's gone all over the world. How many countries over the last 40 years? It all started with the Korean action on the peninsula in 1950. And my answer is they know everything. That's my answer. This is the State Department and the CIA know exactly what they're doing. Along the way, someone in the position of president, I don't give a shit who he is, they definitely know what's going on. And that's my belief, because these are malign, evil people with bad intentions. Okay, and they know what they're doing. This is CIA-funded operations this is what Tiananmen Square was. The uproar in Tiananmen Square that day was the CIA and George Soros-funded operation. That's not me saying weird things. It's in the historical record. And then they did the same thing in Hong Kong last year. They funded trouble on purpose to destabilize the situation in Hong Kong through the NED. And Jerry said it earlier, destabilizing Xinjiang. Is it possible that Biden doesn't know that that's what the CIA, his own CIA and State Department is doing? The man's been in Washington for 30 years. He knows exactly what's going on. They all know exactly what they're doing. That's my answer.
I totally agree with you, Mario. I think that he knows what's going on. Now, I think that we are in an hour and 13 minutes. So I want to ask one final question that perhaps is the most difficult question for today and for our audiences to hear the answers and what we think. What is China to do? Let me explain. This is not going to stop. The attacks keep coming and coming and coming, and China has been very moderate in their response. Only lately we have seen them pointing fingers at Canada, like, you accuse us of genocide, look what's taking place in your backyard, unfortunately. But my question to both of you, and I'll start with you, Jerry, is how do you think China is going to handle it? How do you think China should handle it when there are British destroyers around the South China Sea, when China's surrounded by American destroyers and carriers, when all these sanctions and when all these attacks on China are taking place? What is China to do? What would you think is the next step?
Yeah, you're right. China doesn't handle it very, very well. I understand that. Exercising restraint is a very good idea. They are exercising great restraint. They're called aggressive when they fly planes in the South China Sea and accused of being aggressive. Hang on a second, it's called the South China Sea. And how can you be aggressive by flying planes off your own coast, around your own coast? These planes only have a 600 or 700 kilometer range, and they're flying near to ships that have come from 10,000 or 8,000 kilometers away. So I don't know. Yeah, who's being aggressive here? So that's one thing. China does exercise, in my opinion, China exercises extremely great restraint. That's what I feel. Now, what can they do about it? And I've said this to many. I get interviewed by journalists all the time, and they always ask me this question, but I've never seen the question in an interview that's been published or posted. The one, and I was in Xinjiang. You saw the Xinjiang thing the other day. They asked me 7 questions, and one of them was this question. But I know that this is not going to get posted. They're putting one a day out in reply to the questions that they asked me to answer. But the question, the simple fact is this: China is very bad at PR. We all know this. China is not good at PR. So what I think that China ought to do is lift its game up. The United States Senate just passed a bill a month ago to spend $300 million on writing negative articles. They didn't say we want truthful articles on China, we want negative articles on China. They actually asked the media to go out and find negative stories, and here's $300 million set aside for that purpose. So that tells you something is drastically wrong with the American system if they have to pay to get what they call truthful stories, but they're not. They never ask for truth. They ask for negative. They've specifically used the word negative in there. China needs to spend $1 billion. It needs to spend $1 billion employing some of the best PR companies in the world to start showing China through Western eyes how China is, and through Chinese eyes how China is. Now, people in China kind of resent the fact that we as foreigners get this white privilege. We talk about China, and we're not even Chinese. There are some Chinese people who resent that, and I agree with that. It shouldn't be us. But the fact is, none of us are believed, but at least in the eyes of Westerners, you and I, you two and I, have a little credibility because we have some degree of independence. We can leave China anytime we want, but we choose to stay here. There's a degree of, even though there's allegations of coercion, finances and stuff like that, China does not pay Westerners for interviews. It does pay if we write an article, if we make something and put it onto YouTube with ads, we get paid for that. I don't monetize anything that I've done, but I do write articles and I get paid very small amounts of money for doing so. But I don't get paid. 300 RMB, $50.
They don't even pay you. You can't even say it that way. They just give you small amount. It's a small amount of money they're giving you as a token thank you for your time.
Yeah, some of them pay as much as 1,000 RMB, which is about $120, I think. But most of them pay 300 RMB, and then they don't pay for 4 months anyway. So it doesn't really matter. You can't make a living being a Chinese blogger or vlogger unless you are anti-Chinese.
If I may share my financials here on YouTube.
Yeah, please do.
I made $150 last month. My average is about $1,000 a year. So those of you say like, oh, you're just making money out of these topics. No, it's out of my desire to inform people of how things really are here on the ground. And more importantly, because I also always like to talk about incentives, is I want to stop the path we're going towards. We're going towards conflict, and that scares the bejesus out of me, and that should scare the bejesus out of everybody. And it's all based on lie, like that little detergent from Colin Powell. So this is why I do this work. This is why I put the hours. That's why I have all these wrinkles from working late and putting videos and doing the work that I do. $150 is not the reason, believe me.
Not about that. We don't need to defend ourselves to anyone.
True.
All right, gentlemen. So we've covered an hour and 20 minutes. I think that we've covered everything that we wanted to talk about. Any final thoughts? Any upcoming projects that you would like to plug before we finish our show? Jerry, what's up with you?
No, I have no. I don't do projects. I write about China, but what I do when I write, I simply get this idea that this is wrong. And I'm a little bit like you. I obviously don't do this for the money. If I earned $150 last year doing this, it would be a lot, not last month. What happens with me is that I see something and it's wrong. And so I write something. And that's how I get out there into the different media. And I've been picked up by international media. One of the things I would like to point out is that they have these three things that they do. They either ignore us, or they ridicule us, or they accuse us. Now, I'm fed up with being ridiculed. They call me a retired security officer who rides a bike, an uncle on a bike. These things are all true. I am retired from the security industry, but I wasn't a security officer. And I am an uncle, and I do ride a bike. These things are true, but it's forming part of the ridicule. So basically, no, I have no projects to plug because I don't do many projects. I do get invited to be on different things, and Zhongshan TV will be interviewing me on Wednesday this week and perhaps Thursday as well to make something about me. Zhongshan Ribao, our daily newspaper, interviewed me yesterday and the day before and took videos of me. And so they're coming out soon, and I'll just post them on Twitter the same way I always do. No big projects, but thank you for the opportunity to plug one.
What about you, Mr. Cavolo?
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you for inviting me on, and I will go ahead and take a moment to talk about in my case, lots of great projects that are happening. You and I came off of a project which we'll tell people about when it's out a few months later, but then I immediately jumped into the centenary promotions, the 100-year anniversary of the Party of China, and a couple of shows with CGTN. I was live in Wuhan with them last week, celebrating and talking about the building of the Leishanshan and Huashanshan hospitals over 10 days. I'll be making my own YouTube videos, but I'm really busy in the media here. I am active in the media as a commentator and working with them as a partner, and I appreciate that opportunity. I appreciate the life that I have here in China. And Nanfang Daily just came out with my documentary because of the role that I played as General MacArthur in crossing the Yalu River, which is another real important story, another really, really important story. And so I continue working here with the media. I don't do that as an apologist. And, you have to take the criticisms with a grain of salt because the criticisms are not accurate. The criticisms are only a way of them attempting to disparage and discredit you. And they can't do that because, again, I always say it in my case. Number one, I'll say it, that China is the largest, stable, successful, and capable country on the planet. Boom. And that's not a PR statement. That's a statement that I say because in my work here in China, in everything I do and say is based on evident, observable facts and reality in the historical record. Therefore, everything I say is not an opinion. I'm not wishy-washy about it. I'm crystal clear about what I say. Because when things are evident and observably real and true, then I know I stand on good ground and I know I sleep well at night. And in the end, I'm just an independent entrepreneur who's devoted to my family, happens to be a Chinese, my lovely boy, my mother-in-law who doesn't speak a wink of English, So, that's life. This is reality for all of us. We need to keep doing our best to move forward. And I'm going to keep pushing these messages along and appreciate all the opportunities that I have to do that. And the last thing I have to say, I'm so happy because the commemorative book about what happened with China's pandemic, my book came out and got published in Hong Kong. It's in the Hong Kong bookstores. I'm really happy about that. Nice commemorative hardcover edition of the book, which sells for like $25. Yeah, it's lovely. The book is in the bookstores in Hong Kong. Now, the book's coming to the mainland, and I'll be doing for the next year or more in association with the support of the Liaoning Provincial Foreign Affairs Office. We'll be doing a whole book tour all across the country. Lots of great stuff happening. I'm happy about it. I'm proud. China's my home. China's doing things right. End of discussion.
Before we leave, Fernando, can we just bring up, there is a guy called Dusty Bauer, made a couple of comments about we three are employed to send people overseas. And he makes his last comment, there's 3 or 4 comments up. Depending on the area, one student might pay $400,000 to pass a test. This one. I've worked in this industry for a very long time, and education industry. We don't get paid to send anybody overseas. The point I would like to make about this is if a student wishes to go overseas, they must take an IELTS test.
Dusty, you're a fucking idiot. What are you talking about here? You insult me.
Stop.
You insult Fernando. You insult Jerry. You have no idea what you're talking about. Shut your mouth.
I was going to be a little more polite about that, but say the same thing. Effectively, no, I'll tell you what happens, Mario. I'll tell you what actually happens. I have approached the British Council. British Council owns the IELTS brand in China. I worked for them, and I was employed as an IELTS examiner for the British Council, which means effectively you're working for an organization that is an arm of the British government. They do make lots of money from students taking IELTS tests in China. It costs 2,000 RMB, just over 2,000 to take a test. Most students fail. Now, you don't pass or fail. You get a grading mark which is acceptable to the university or institution you want to go to. And if you don't achieve that, then you consider it a fail. So you get a grading mark. Now, these kids who are taking this test are being hoodwinked by the British government into taking the test 5, 6, 7, 8 times. 700,000 people took the test in 2019. 2020 was a disaster, of course. But 2019, 700,000. That's 1.5 billion RMB for this testing system. I went to the British Council when I worked there and said, we need to change the way people teach IELTS because it's being taught wrongly. And they said, no, we're not going to change the way we teach IELTS. If we change the way that we teach IELTS, more people will pass and less people will take the test. So it's not China or the Chinese government or us working here that are ripping the Chinese students off. They're being ripped off by the British government. End of story.
Business.
business. Well, gentlemen, I wanted to wrap up with my projects. As I said, I'm going to be releasing my video later today or tomorrow called Am I a Communist?
Yeah. Fernando, besides your YouTube videos and the fact that we know you're not a communist, you also, I think I can say, you were also recently asked to do a video, your first one by CGTN.
Indeed, it's going to come out today. That's what I was going to say.
What's coming out?
It's coming out. Sorry, I was informed that it was going to be coming out today. So keep an eye open if you guys follow CGTN. It's my first collaboration with them. Very, very comprehensive. My understanding of the 100th anniversary of the CPC. What else is coming my way? Well, we shouldn't talk about it yet because we haven't finalized some of the details. But Jerry, Mario, Noel, who's watching also. We have a project that we want to work on, but we'll tell you more at a different time. I want to finish this by reminding you guys to support our channel, right? Support the WuMao show. You can scan the QR code if you're here in China, and you can send your support. I really appreciate it very much. My center has been closed for the last 10 days, and we're probably going to be closed for another week. And that's a hard pill to take, but that's what you need to do to stay safe. Anyway, your support is greatly appreciated. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both so very, very much. From a Latino, warm-hearted person, thank you so much. Fantastic show.
Absolutely.
Here goes your call.
Okay. Hugs and kisses all around. Yeah, that's the Latino way. 2 Latinos and a cold Brit.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. And to you guys watching, thank you so much, and see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.